Test 3, Part 2, Passage 1. Listen to a conversation between a student and a professor.
Good morning, Professor Wilkins. Do you have time to talk? I don't have an appointment, so if you're busy, I can come back later.
That won't be necessary. You're Sally from my Biology 101 class, right? How are you finding it so far?
It's quite challenging, but I'm really enjoying this week's unit. Actually, I have a few questions about the material.
What can I help you with?
Well, last class, we talked about why the leaves of certain trees changed color in the fall. I was hoping I could go over this process with you to make sure I understand it for the midterm. I'm a little unclear about some of the details from the last lecture.
I see. Why don't you try to explain the process, and I'll let you know if you go off track.
Okay. Now, if I remember correctly, the change in color is a result of how trees produce energy. You know, the process of photosynthesis. Basically, they convert sunlight and carbon dioxide into sugar and oxygen. And to do this, they need to produce chlorophyll. This is the substance that gives the leaves their green color, right?
Exactly. But you still haven't told me why the leaves change color.
Well, that's the thing. I know that as the weather gets colder and the days get shorter, the tree halts the process of photosynthesis. So the green color begins to fade. But why do other colors appear? I mean, does the tree produce different chemicals in the winter that cause the leaves to change color or something?
Partly. The cold weather causes the tree to produce anthocyanins, which are pigments that have a reddish color. In contrast, other pigments called carotenoids, these are yellow, orange, or brown, simply become more visible once there is no more chlorophyll in a leaf. Does that make sense?
I see. Somehow I missed that detail during the lecture. Now, what I really don't understand is, what causes the leaves to eventually fall off the tree? This wasn't covered in the reading you assigned, and we haven't talked about it in class yet.
That's a much more complicated process. The technical term for it is leaf abscission. I was planning to discuss it in Monday's class, but I guess I can go over it quickly with you now. Okay, so the place where the leaf actually falls off is called the abscission zone, at the base of the leaf. The first step in the process is the weakening of the cell walls. When the weather gets colder, cells in the abscission zone start to secrete enzymes, pectinase and cellulase to be exact. These enzymes degrade the strength of the cell walls, making them weak. Then water pressure in the leaf causes the cells to expand. Imagine a balloon expanding. Eventually it will burst, and the expansion causes fracture lines to develop. These fracture lines are like open wounds, basically. Finally, some physical mechanism is needed to make the leaf fall. This could be wind, animal activity, or precipitation, for instance. Once the abscission zone becomes weak and torn, even the slightest touch or movement will make a leaf drop.
Oh, so all of this is initiated by the enzymes then. Thank you so much for taking the time to explain it to me. I had no idea that plant biology could be so intriguing. I might take a botany course next semester.
Well, since you seem to be very interested in botany, I think it might help you to know that the botany department at the University of San Francisco is hosting a conference next Saturday. There are a number of prominent experts in the field planning to give presentations.
Wow, I bet that would be right up my alley. Can anyone attend?
No. Registration for the event closed a few days ago, but a student of mine who is planning to attend won't be able to go because he has a scheduling conflict. Would you like to go in his place? It would give you the chance to learn more about the field and ask some questions about the material we're covering in class this week.
I like the idea, but I'm just not sure if I can make it. I have a part-time job, so I usually work on the weekends. Can I talk to my boss and get back to you tomorrow?
No problem. Just let me know before noon. Another student might be interested.
Okay, I'll do that. Thanks for your help.
Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer. 1. What is the conversation mainly about? Listen again to part of the conversation. Then answer the question.
Basically, they convert sunlight and carbon dioxide into sugar and oxygen. And to do this, they need to produce chlorophyll. This is the substance that gives the leaves their green color, right?
Exactly. But you still haven't told me why the leaves change color.
Well, that's the thing. I know that as the weather gets colder and the days get shorter, the tree halts the process of photosynthesis. So the green color begins to fade. But why do other colors appear?
2. Why does the student say this?
Well, that's the thing.
Three. According to the professor, what factors contribute to the dropping of leaves in trees? Four. What does the professor imply about a leaf's pigments? Five. What is the student's attitude toward the botany conference?
Test 3, Part 2, Passage 2. Listen to part of a lecture in a physiology class.
Okay, out of all the organs in the human body, the brain is, it's the most complex. Even with the tools of modern science, there is still a lot about the structure and, function of this organ that we don't understand. One of the most mysterious processes is neurogenesis, the generation of new neurons or nerve cells. For a long time, scientists did not believe that new nerve formation occurred after childhood. However, recent research has shown that the process continues even after a person reaches physical maturity. But there's still a lot of uncertainty about how neurogenesis works in adults and what its effects are. All right, first, I should probably point out that adult neurogenesis has become an important area of study in the field of neuroscience. And it has attracted a lot of attention from health professionals as well. Why? Well, if humans are capable of producing new neurons throughout the course of their lifetimes, it may be possible to manipulate and even enhance this process, which would create the potential to treat a wide range of mental disorders that affect people as they age. For example, some scientists believe that by manipulating the neuron production process, they may be able to cure Alzheimer's disease, a degenerative condition that results in the loss of many mental functions. Now, none of this would have seemed even remotely possible a few decades ago. Like I said, There was a general consensus within the scientific community that neurogenesis was only possible in infants and children. However, in 1965, researchers at MIT reported that they had observed the birth of new cells in the brains of adult rats. Initially, this was very exciting, but there was one problem. The technology available at the time was not sophisticated enough to determine whether these were neurons or glial cells. Does everyone know the difference? Maybe I should explain. Glial cells don't transfer nerve impulses like neurons. Instead, they play a supporting role. They provide nutrients to neurons and protect them from harmful chemicals. And I should also mention that unlike neurons, glial cells are capable of reproduction through cell division. This is why they are the most common cells in the brain. By some estimates, there are 50 times as many glial cells as neurons. Anyway, though, the researchers at MIT couldn't determine the type of cells they had observed. Well, the experiment was interesting, but it didn't change anyone's mind. Scientists were still convinced that neurogenesis did not happen after childhood. As technology improved, though, a number of experiments provided conclusive proof that neurogenesis occurs in adult rats and monkeys, and one in 1998 finally showed that the same process takes place in adult humans. But it's important to note that there were still some unexplained issues. For one thing, new neurons have been detected in only 2 areas of an adult brain: the olfactory bulb, which processes sensory information from the nose, and the other area is the hippocampus. This is the section of the brain that converts short-term memories into long-term ones. The formation of new neurons has never been observed in the neocortex. This is odd because it seems that this is the part of the brain that would benefit the most from ongoing neurogenesis. You see, the neocortex is responsible for higher cognitive functions. Things like decision-making, facial recognition, spatial reasoning, and so on. Another issue is that when neurogenesis does take place in adults, the survival rate of the new neurons is very low. Most never become functional and die within a few weeks. So, because neurogenesis occurs on such a limited scale, once a person reaches adulthood, many experts claim that it has no significant impact on the brain's performance. Others disagree, though, and I take this in myself. I believe that adult neurogenesis is highly advantageous, particularly in the hippocampus. As I mentioned earlier, the hippocampus transfers new information into the long-term memory. What's really interesting is that several studies have demonstrated that neurogenesis in the hippocampus of an adult rat is by environmental factors. Rats in a mentally stimulating environment, one with things like mazes and running wheels, these rats produce more neurons than rats kept in isolation with limited stimuli, and the survival rate of the new nerve cells is higher as well. This strongly suggests that neurogenesis in the hippocampus is related to the ability to process new information. To learn, in other words. Another consideration is that the hippocampus plays a role in moderating emotions. In fact, there appears to be a link between reduced neurogenesis and the onset of depression. This is supported by research into the effects of antidepressants on the human brain. A team of scientists in the UK discovered that taking these types of drugs actually results in more neurons being created. So there are still a lot of questions about adult neurogenesis to be answered. But, well, it's easy to see why people are so excited about this area of research.
6. What is the main topic of the lecture? Seven. According to the professor, why is there a lot of interest in adult neurogenesis? 8. In the lecture, the professor explains the differences between neurons and glial cells. Indicate whether each phrase below describes a neuron or glial cell. Listen again to part of the lecture, then answer the question.
The formation of new neurons has never been observed in the neocortex. This is odd because it seems that this is the part of the brain that would benefit the most from ongoing neurogenesis. You see, the neocortex is responsible for higher cognitive functions. Things like decision-making, facial recognition, spatial reasoning, and so on.
9. What does the professor imply when she says this?
This is odd because it seems that this is the part of the brain that would benefit the most from ongoing neurogenesis.
Ten. What is the professor's opinion of adult neurogenesis in the hippocampus? Eleven. What are two ways in which a stimulating environment affects neurogenesis?